All right, so leading up to the election, how does one run a campaign? So this campaign is that time where you have declared your candidacy and now you are working to try to get other people's support. That's what we mean here by campaigning. It's an integral part of American elections, and one thing that we definitely note is that campaigns are extremely expensive. I haven't heard the totals for 2018, but in 2016, I believe it was somewhere around $7 billion were spent on different elections throughout the United States, everything from president all the way down to county and local offices. That's a lot of money. Now, do candidates have to raise that money all by themselves and spend it all on their own behalf? No. Okay, that's where campaign finance comes into play. Now, if you are running for office, are you going to try to get people to donate money directly to you that you can use to pay for campaign expenses? Hiring staff, printing posters, yard signs, running commercials on television, all that sort of stuff. Absolutely. And that money that people then donate directly to a candidate is what is called hard money. There are limits on the amount that individuals can donate as hard money to candidates. And it's somewhere around, it changes, it adjusts for inflation every campaign year. But currently it's around $2,600 per person per candidate. Okay, so if you and your spouse both donate to the same person, you can collectively donate about $5,200 per candidate. That could be for county attorney, it could be for governor, it could be for president. Each one of those particular races, you could donate that amount of money, which is still quite a bit of money. But there's also other ways that candidates can get money that is unlimited. Or money is spent on their behalf, which is unlimited. And that's what we refer to as being soft money. So not only can I choose to donate to a candidate for governor, and maybe, Tim Walz. Let's say my wife and I, we donated $5,200 to Tim Walz, but I wanted to give him more money. Okay, I'm prohibited from giving him directly any more money. But am I prohibited from donating to the Democratic Party? No. And what do you think the Democratic Party would do with the money that I donated to it? Would they spend that money in running ads and printing up literature and making phone calls to get people to the polls and do things that would help not just that particular Democratic candidate, but all of them, help get them elected? Yes. Now, there are even limits on the amount that I can give to a political party, but it's something like $10,000 a year. So now I've given something like $15,000 that will go to be spent on behalf of the one candidate. But what if that's still not enough? Can I find other ways to donate money that will be spent on behalf of the candidates that I want to win? Are there other ways to do it? What are the other linkage institution that we've talked about that serves as that intermediary between people and government? Not political parties, but interest groups. Can I give money to interest groups that are aligned with particular candidates that want to see that candidate get elected and also spend money on that candidate's behalf? Yes. Now, there are certain rules that go about how they do this. That interest group has to form what's called a political action committee, or a PAC, meaning the money that's raised by the PAC can be used to help get candidates elected. And the amount of contributions I can give to a PAC used to be limited. We had this thing in the early 90s and into the early 2000s called the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act, or BICRA. And BICRA then limited the amount that I could give to PACs, which then meant that PACs were then limited in the amounts that they could spend to run commercials that either favor one candidate or are very critical of another one. Okay, that negative campaigning that we see is oftentimes done by these PACs. However, a Supreme Court case that came about in about 2010 or 2011 was called Citizens United versus the FEC, the Federal Election Committee. What the Supreme Court ruled in the Citizens United case is that corporations or interest groups or unions that form PACs are people. And because they are then people, they are guaranteed the right of free speech in the First Amendment. So how then you choose to spend your money as an individual, or how an interest group or a corporation or a union chooses to spend its money as a PAC is part of their free speech right, and you can't take that right away from them. Meaning they can spend unlimited amounts of money to try to help elect certain people or make sure that others don't get elected. So how do we get to $7 billion spent in an election season? That's how. Okay? Questions on campaign finance? It's a lot more detailed than that, but I'll try to answer them. Yeah.
Do a lot of people actually donate money to these things?
That is an excellent question. From things that I have read, approximately 1% of the citizens spend almost all of the money that goes to a PAC. So which 1% is that? Is that me, the teacher, poor little teacher in Malacca? Or is that the extremely rich and wealthy and large corporations and unions? It's that. So that begs a very important question. I might be getting ahead of myself, but is that free speech? Is my voice heard as much as that of a PAC, as much as that of a wealthy person who has that money to be able to spend? And why do you think they sought to try to limit that with the Bipartisan Campaign Reform Act? That's yes. Is there a big push by people today to try to get this court case overturned? Yes, but how do you do that? There's only two ways. Either another Supreme Court case that overruled the previous one, or by constitutional amendment, which don't happen very often. Okay, so how do you feel about that? Okay, are you on this left side that corporations and unions should spend as much as they want to elect favorable candidates, that it is their right to free speech? Or are you on the red side over here that individuals cannot compete with the spending of PACs and therefore their voices aren't heard? Or is there some sort of common ground that we need to find that's somewhere in the middle? This would be if we had the Pear Deck, you could actually do your thing, but we're not using that today. Okay. Who thinks that they're in the green side? Nobody. Who thinks they're in the red side? You all just want to be middle of the road people? Okay. All right. So, do some strategies of campaigning work, or, we seem to be spending a whole lot of time campaigning for people to get into office. How many of you the next day after Tuesday, the election day, already heard the names of people that were going to be running for president 2 years down the road from now? Yes? Okay. Has the campaign for 2020 already begun? In the minds of some people, yes. We tend to have very long campaign seasons compared to other democracies around the world. The British are limited to about 7 or 8 weeks of campaigning, as an example, in their democracy. Ours goes a year or longer. Okay, so what does work, or what could potentially work? The first thing is what we call retail politics. This is where voters actually go out and they try to interact, or candidates go out and try to interact with the people that will be electing them, with the voters. These are the things where they will march in parades, and try to shake the hands of as many people as they can. These are the things where they show up at community functions and they interact with the public in that way. This is where they try to get their name out there as much as they can. So it leads into that party identification part then too, where they try to get this base of support from their party line voters, but then also try to make their name known amongst independents as well. So they work on their candidate image. They try to play up things from their background that maybe shows them as being experienced or qualified. They play up things like if they have served in the military and that they're a veteran, because that makes them attractive to other people. They play up any sort of knowledge that they have. Maybe they've gone on to teach political science at Harvard or something like that, and they know all about how government works and operates, therefore they'd be a great candidate. And then they try to downplay the ones that might make them less attractive. Maybe they've been picked up twice for DWI and they don't want other people to know that, so they try to bury some of those things. They take stance on issues. So they through interacting with the public, they find out what issues are important to them and they take positions on those issues that will help get them elected. Or they talk about issues that are important to them that they think other voters want to hear about. They try to make fancy campaign slogans, the things that have staying power and stick with voters, like "Make America Great Again." Still see those red hats with the white letters that show those things, even though that election was 2 years ago. It'll be interesting to see how that changes. Will it be "Keep America Great Still"? Or I'm not sure how that will work, but we'll find out soon enough. And then we have negative attacks. Okay. Now, are candidates going to be the ones that primarily launch negative attacks on their opponent? No, because that might make them look bad. But who might go negative on their behalf? Who? The PAC. Political Action Committee. Okay, then they'll run ads, kind of like this one, which is really interesting. Have you seen the famous Daisy ad from 1964? Okay, let's watch this one here, and then we'll go to lunch. Do we have sound?
We must either love each other or we must die.
Vote for President Johnson on November 3rd. The stakes are too high for you to stay home.
Okay, we'll talk about that after lunch. If you make it back.